Now, the FrSky X-Lite is a legendary transmitter, but it's very big, unlike the brand new X-Lite. Now, for people like me that travel a lot for work and other purposes, the big bulky transmitters are just not viable. They're just not practical. They're easily broken, easily damaged, and they just don't really fit in a suitcase very neatly. So that's where the X-Lite might be a solution. Comes in this lovely padded box, which again is a really nice start. If we just compare that alone against the size of the X-Lite, for example, this would fit in a padded box, but the padded box would have to be so much bigger than the transmitter, whereas this padded box is actually about the same size. So that immediately is a good sign for me. Let's unzip it and have a look. So this transmitter comes in at around £100, which is about $130, and it's available in 2 colours. Links to it are in the video description, and look at that beauty. I've got the red one here, and wow, have FrSky changed their style. The X9D is a great transmitter, but it's an old-fashioned, clumsy-looking transmitter. It's actually a copy of a JR shell from many, many years ago, easily 20 years. So how lovely to see that manufacturers are modernising with beautiful looking transmitters like that. We've got an instruction manual, we've got some stickers, there's also a small accessory bag of I have not got a clue what they are, in all honesty. There's a spring in there that's probably related to the gimbals, but yeah, haven't got a clue. Anyway, let's have a closer look at this lovely transmitter. So the finish and the build quality on this transmitter is just lovely, and I would actually go as far as to say it feels premium. Now, at £100 for a transmitter, that is really a budget price, but you don't feel that you're getting a budget transmitter here at all. It's very, very slick, and you're going to be able to use this with planes, wings, and even helicopters as well. We've got 4 switches on the upper side, first of all. They are tiny little switches, but I guess they're designed like that so that you can easily flick them with your fingers here. They're really easy to access, no issues there at all. There's also 2 rotary dials on the top. They're not spring-loaded, they are static. Also on top is a small antenna port. If we just pull the rubber grommet out there, and you can see that we've got an SMA connector, so that if you want to attach an external antenna, you can, but I guess that this has an internal antenna as well, so maybe you don't always need to use that. But certainly one of my gripes on the X9D was the fact that you had to solder an SMA connector on there. It didn't come with one from the factory, which was really annoying. You can see that with my X9D here, I've actually put an SMA port on there so that when I'm transporting this transmitter, there's no risk of snapping the antenna that was on there from the factory. You'll notice around the gimbals there are no trim buttons for trimming the directional controls. Instead, they're on this little joypad here. So I quite like that. Rather than having to move your finger around to all the different trims, you've just got it on one centralized little trimmer here. That's quite nice. I'm guessing on the screen there'll be an indication of that. Then there's your little joystick for navigating the menu interface on here, and there's an enter and a return button. So that's very neat as well. We've then got our power button, and I love the illumination that we're going to have on that. I'll show you that in just a sec. Then on the underside of the transmitter, we've got a small USB port in the middle, and that's for connecting it up to a computer. There's then an audio port, which is for audio out, which is cool if you've got smart audio. And then there is what they call the smart port. Now, the manual does say that this is used for firmware upgrades, which would be a bit of a shame because it's quite a proprietary looking connector, that. Then there's an SD card slot. It's likely that that's also for firmware upgrades, as with the X9D, so we've just got to hope. It's also worth just saying this has a lovely feel to it. You know when you kind of get those plastics and they almost feel like a soft plastic whilst being hard at the same time? It's got that lovely, lovely texture to it. Looking at the back of the transmitter, nothing really to say about this except that I seem to have some missing screws, which is very odd. But hey, there's also this little panel here. If we slide that up, you can see that you've got a small module bay. So I'm guessing we'll probably be able to use that for flashing receivers as well, as we have on the X9D, but also for any modules that they're going to produce for this tiny little transmitter. So looking at the base of the transmitter, you'll see that these bits are detachable, and they are. That's where you install your batteries. Now these do come off very loosely initially, but once you've got the battery in there, and if you've bought the right battery, these are actually then almost kind of pressure loaded, and so they actually stay very rigidly in place. This is not a battery port for AA batteries. You actually need to buy some of these. These are called 18500s, and you most commonly see these sold by vaping stores. You know, they go into those portable cigarette things. They're 1100 milliamps, these ones I've specifically got. They can be quite hard to find, but I've linked to these in the video description. These are from Amazon. I think they're only about $5 or £4, and they fit perfectly. So you put those in place like that. They can be a bit of a pain to get out, actually. Screw the lid shut like that, and then there you go. They're then installed, and we've now got power to our FrSky Lite. So with the batteries installed, you might be thinking, okay, well, how do I charge them? Maybe I can plug into the USB port. Unfortunately not, and that's my biggest gripe about this transmitter. It has no inbuilt charging circuit, and so to charge those batteries up, you've got to take them out and charge them in a portable charger like this. Again, I got this on Amazon. It was only about $10, but it's USB as well, which is quite nice. But it's just another thing to have to carry around. What a shame they didn't build in a charging circuit so that you just needed a USB cable, which then plugged in and then plugged into any old USB power source. So I think FrSky dropped the ball a little bit there, but on the other hand, you get a nice long time out of one charge of these batteries, but still, it's just a bit of a shame. So with the batteries installed, let's power it on, and you do that by pressing and holding the power button on top, which then illuminates. There's a really nice illuminated display here, very bright, very vivid. Now obviously the first thing we get is a throttle warning because it's not to naught. We're then going to get switch warnings, so let's switch all of those off. There we go. Failed safe not set. Yes, we know. And there you go. Now we're at our kind of conventional OpenTX menu. So it does use OpenTX, the same as the X9D. And that probably means that your model memories will also transfer across if you want to this transmitter. So this one has a 60 model memory inbuilt, but you can extend that by inserting an SD card in there as well. It's a 16 channel transmitter, and obviously it's 2.4 gigahertz. Just as with the X9D, you get haptic feedback with vibration. It's got voice and sound alerts as well, and the gimbals that I mentioned that are lovely are the M12 gimbals that people paid a lot of money to upgrade their X9D to. So first of all, let's look at the little trimmer system, because obviously you've got two gimbals here and only one trimmer button. So how does that work? Well, natively, if you just press the trimmer up and down, it trims the elevator and the aileron gimbal first. You can see the little slider going up and down. And we've also got the audio feedback and then the vibration when it gets to the central point. Left to right on the trimmer is the roll axis on that same gimbal. Now, to trim this gimbal, which is the throttle or the yaw, you press and hold the shift button and then press the trimmer. And now you can see it's trimming the other stick. So that's not necessarily a big issue, because when you're flying, you're going to be trimming the aileron and the elevators more so than you are the throttle and the yaw. However, if you do need to trim the throttle and the yaw, it's not a big issue holding down shift to make those changes. It's very quick and easy. So as with any new interface, it's going to take a bit of getting used to navigating it. We're all used to the OpenTX on the X9D. This is just a simple, different way of accessing it. So if we press the stick down and hold it, we get the telemetry screens, which we're used to seeing. Press and hold the stick up, and you get the details on your timers and the various throttle, etc. So that's all of your timer data, which we can then press back to return. Press and hold the stick to the right, and we get our model memory. So this is where you set up all of your models. Exit out of that, press and hold the stick to the left, and we get our radio setup menu. So you'll recognize this probably from other transmitters as well. Now, you might remember that some complained about the sound of the fan on the X9D. Well, from this port here, I can hear a fan very, very quietly, but I mean literally so quietly that you probably can't hear it on this recording. So not an issue with this transmitter at all. So yeah, overall the interface is really nice. The screen is lovely. Although it's small, it does everything you need it to do. The gimbals feel really decisive and responsive, and in general, the build quality of this transmitter is just lovely. So I think what we'll do next is bind this to a model, and then we're going to take it out to see how it feels in flight. So binding it is exactly the same as any other FrSky transmitter. I've got a little tiny whoop here, kind of a tiny whoop. I've put it into bind mode, and now on the transmitter, we just go through the same process as you'd expect. So I've gone into the model memory. I need to select the type. So the mode selection is exactly the same as well. You can page through the various modes. This one's a D8, so I'm going to select that. Go down to bind, press enter, wait for the beeps. There we go. And our quad has now bound successfully. So time to head out and see how the X-Lite feels in the hands. So nice day at the field, and it's time to test out the rather beautiful FrSky X-Lite. So we are now bound with the X-Lite and my little quad here, which by the way is the Baby Hawk, a lovely little quadcopter it is too. Okay, so with everything bound, I've just also set up the mixers and the various inputs and outputs. We're ready to go. So let's see how this feels. I actually really like these little switches. You know, we're so used to the big long switches of the Taranis. These actually feel really nice in the hand. I'm not sure why. Anyway, and up we go. Wow. Now, it is a 4S that I've got in this little Baby Hawk. And so this thing is pretty sprightly, but I must say, this feels really, really nice, actually. The other odd thing is I haven't removed the spring from the throttle, as I said, and it actually feels it's quite cool, actually. It means I can be a little bit lazy with my thumb because the spring is bringing it back up for me. So these gimbals are absolutely beautiful. They are far smoother than the stock gimbals that come with the Taranis X9D. Much, much smoother. And yeah, there's no ratchety feel. They feel very, very silky, silky smooth. Trying to keep the transmitter in view, probably doing a terrible job of it, so apologies in advance. But this feels great in the hands as well. Now, I am a thumber, I'm not a pincher. I can imagine the issues people have with pinching on this, actually, just because of the stick length and also because of the way you have to hold this to grip it. But from a thumber's perspective, this is PlayStation, this is Xbox, this is, you know, it's just that feeling of game console, and it feels so, so nice. I had my doubts and concerns about this when I first saw it. I mean, I thought it looked great, but I was worried about, you know, would it still feel like I'm flying RC, or would it feel like a game? Well, it feels absolutely brilliant. And without doubt, this is going to be a transmitter that I take on my travels because it's just so portable and compact. The only big downside, as I mentioned earlier, is the charging of those batteries. It's such a shame there's not a built-in charger. It would just make it so much easier. You know, plug it in via USB, charges the batteries for you. It makes so much more sense. But on the whole, what a lovely transmitter. Very, very nice. Now, I'm not going to go into FPV because of this sprung throttle. I just think it would feel a bit weird. But in summary, a great transmitter. Links to it in the video description. Love it in red. It's also available in black, but I think it looks much better in red. And yeah, absolutely love it. I think the X9D I might reserve just for my flying on home territory, but this is definitely going to be the one that I take with me traveling. Thanks very much for watching. Comment below with your thoughts, give the video a thumbs up, and of course subscribe if you're not already. Cheers, guys.